Behind the Shades.
My name's Nick Werrett. I'm from England, UK, a little town called Hull, and I currently do a podcast called Nick Needs to Know, which is discussing with different guests about career progression, what it's taken them to get to where they are today. So we talk about everything from today backwards, basically from the first pay packet up until now and what that looked like for them, just to give everybody an idea. No two people have the same career path. There's no set mold. Everything is okay. And there might be somebody out there that can relate to each one of my guests who's had a similar sort of journey to get to where they are. That basically started for me as a bit of an outlet, because I always find I need something to focus on. I get really hyper involved when I start something. I want to give it 100%, and usually starting something, I'm on my own starting it, so I can give it up quite easily, and then I move on to the next thing. But I found getting other people involved and guests involved kept me on track, and that kept my mind clear and focused. So that's who I am, and that is what I'm currently doing right now.
Perfect. So take us through your podcast. How was it for you at the very beginning of it, in its infancy, to where it is now today?
So to me, it's probably still in its infancy because I have big dreams and big goals. So I still see it as a little baby. But from the very beginning, where I work for a large media company in the UK. So I'm surrounded by a lot of people that like to get involved in that sort of thing. So that's a bit of a bonus for me. That's helped me out a lot. So I've had guests left, right, and centre. So I've never really struggled to get voices onto my podcast and get people's stories out there, because of the size of the media company that we work for. So that was in the beginning. And now the guests are getting more to the point where people are asking if they can be on my podcast rather than me reaching out, which is good. So I see that as a kind of a turning point now. So hopefully I can continue with that momentum moving forward, and get bigger and better guests and better stories and stuff like that.
When I first started my podcast here that you're on, it was an opportunity, as you mentioned, for me to just let things out. And a part of it was, am I really that crazy? There has to be people out there with crazier stories than what I would have, right?
Yeah.
And when you start bringing these guests on, you begin to realize, wow, I've read about this. Now I know someone that has gone through it. I didn't know this was a part of the world. Now I've met someone that is going through something that I didn't even think was even capable. Are you surprised at some of the stories and some of the guests that you've come across in your time?
Very, very surprised. So like yourself, you often think of your own life as very unique, and that sometimes you're in situations where you think everything's going wrong against you and you're the only person that's suffering, and you're the only person that's had downfalls and the lows that you've had and the highs that you've had, and you just feel so trapped in your own thoughts. But talking to other people and listening to their story and having that opportunity, you think, yeah. I mean, for example, I had a guest on who was in his 50s, and he'd had 47 jobs in his career, 47 different jobs. Now, I didn't think that were possible to have that many jobs in such a, because unless he started working when he was 4 years old, he would have had like one job a year. But yeah, and then getting into the whys as to why he'd had that many jobs, and he later on in life found out he was suffering from ADHD and things like that, and he were always wanting the next shiniest thing, so to speak, and wanting to move on. And it cost him a couple of marriages, and he nearly committed. He tried to commit suicide, and it just opened up a massive story. And you think, wow, there's more to people than the front cover of their book. But yeah, there is. It does open your eyes to show you that you're not alone. You're not on your own in this journey. There's a lot of people going through a lot of different things, and just by talking and opening up and even just listening can be a massive help.
There's one guest I had where they're talking about polygamy. And I was so interested in that because as a man, right, you're like, who doesn't want 2 wives, 3 wives, 4 wives, right? And then when you find out the lifestyle of it, you're like, okay, this isn't for me. Just can't. You begin to realize I have difficulty keeping up with one.
Yeah,
How am I going to do so many? But what I loved about it is that it was like a reflection of, let's say, 3 different worlds. It was a reflection of the world that I'm currently living. Like I'm looking at a mirror version of myself because there's someone similar. There's like a reflection, a mirror of a world that maybe I'm not a part of, such as the polygamy and maybe that type of world. And then there are some guests that I had that they're going through something. And I was like, Lord, please don't make me ever go through what they're going through, because it sounds so tragic. Were you able to relate your experiences with your guests on your show?
Yeah, definitely. Because ultimately, I think depression is it's just one thing, but there's lots of different shoots that come off that, lots of different whys, but it is ultimately one. I don't want to really call it a disease because it sounds negative, but it is kind of a disease, and it's just one thing, but there's a lot of things that come off that what can lead to depression. So yeah, there was a lot of relatable stories out there, and I could relate to certain guests and certain aspects of their stories, definitely. I mean, for me, it started when I was in my late 20s, and I didn't really know what it was until I was 30. And looking back, I was probably going through a build-up towards depression for the last 10 years prior to that. So that was a kind of there was one thing that kind of like give me a wake-up call to say, this is something important, you need to sort this out. And that happened when I was 30.
What do you think was the cause of you realizing, hey, something's not right? Is this depression? Is this something else? And what were your feelings when you're going through that moment in your life?
So the 10 years building up to it, I didn't know until I was looking back retrospectively at it that it was depression. So the actual moment was when I was 30, was when I'd gone through a massive change in life. So I'd been in a 10-year relationship that ended, and then I started a new relationship. So that were a massive change. Everything was different. My environment was different. And that kind of brought these actions and emotions and feelings that I was going through to the forefront, because it was someone else having to deal with it, who told me then at the time, look, this is not normal. You need to have this looked at. And we was on holiday. It's about, from where I live, we drove about 2 hours in the car to get to where we were on holiday. And my head just went, I just lost it. Not in a violent way or anything like that, but to the point where I just put a t-shirt on and I set off walking. I tried to walk the 2-hour drive that we'd just done back down highways, places I didn't even know where I was, and I didn't even know what I was doing. Something in my mind had just flipped, and I just set off walking, and that caused a lot of problems for the people that are around me that love me, enough for them to kind of sit me down and have like a mini intervention and say, look, we're not going to stop hounding you basically until you've been and got this sorted out. And that was the point. That was the turning point for me. And then that was what made me look back on the previous 10 years and think, yeah, an accumulation of what I was doing, the lifestyle I was living, the relationship I was in, all added up and created that one thing that is depression that I spoke about. So that was the turning point. And I mean, to have that realization, it's not nice. When you ask what I felt like and what I was going through, it's not a nice thing because you're in denial at the time. You do not want, and I mean, especially, I'm talking like 10, 11 years ago now, so I don't know what it was like over in the States, but in the UK, it's only just really becoming more spoken about and more of an okay topic to have at the forefront of a conversation is depression. So back then it was spoken about, but there was still a stigma around it. And I didn't want to have that stigma of, oh, Nick's got depression. And people trying to tiptoe around you and ask if you're okay, like you've got some sort of illness. When I hadn't, I just had a realization, and I was kind of embarrassed, but I worked through it with support from the people I had around me at the time. And I think if I didn't have those people around me or surrounding myself with those people, I probably would have reverted back to what was my norm. But I got through it. But it was hard. It was a really hard time. I would say it was harder getting over it than it was going through it. That's what I would say.
And over here, many men experience depression, anxiety, and other mental health concerns. And for many of the points that you mentioned out is that they feel somewhat embarrassed, right? They don't want the label of, I'm a person with depression, I'm a person with anxiety. And then when you put on top of that, that they don't have as many resources to assist, and they don't have the support system that you described as well, many of them end up taking their own life. And it's a shame that they don't feel that they can come to someone, because for you to share that with me or whomever at that point in time in your life takes courage. And a lot of men, they want to be strong, right? They want to be independent, and they don't want to show that weakness. But I think we need to do a better job in saying that expressing how you feel is a sign of strength. Expressing what you're thinking takes courage, especially amongst other men, because sometimes we may joke, right? You and I may have like a friendly banter and things like that, but you should be able to come to someone and say, hey, Terrain, I'm struggling with this. I was in a 10-year relationship. I gave my all. I've invested so much of myself, but it has maybe become this person that I don't really like. It's maybe become this person that I no longer want to be. When you are going through it and you're being reflective, you're trying to do that 2-hour walk, you went to your support system. What are some of the conversations that you're having within yourself during that time as you wanted to get better?
So the conversations I were having with myself were more along the lines of, I need to make a change. So I did not want to carry on doing what I was doing previously, because I knew that it would have been too easy then to revert back into that sort of lifestyle and way of living sort of thing. So I wanted to change everything from the inside out. So I started off with friends, which was a hard one, and social life. So I had to change that. I had to massively change that. So stop going out every Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Stop meeting up with the same people. And then I went from that into work. So I wanted to change my career. So when I was going through the depression, I was self-employed. I'm a bricklayer by trade. So I was earning some good money, but that gave me a lot of freedom, and it gave me a lot of probably what I thought at the time was power, to be able to just do what I want when I want, and that was no good for me. So I needed to change my career. So I looked at joining the police force. I was unsuccessful at that because you needed some sort of a degree, like a university degree, to get into the police force. The next best thing was prison service. Now, the reason I picked the prison service or police force was because of the uniform and the structure. So I thought if I could bring some structure into at least 8 hours of my day, that would give me a bit of stability and change my mindset completely. And it did that. As soon as I put on that shirt and tie and my epaulets on my shirt, trousers on, pressed my trousers, pressed my shirt, I felt like I was structured. I had to do things a certain way, or I was getting fired. And the day was structured for the prisoners as much as it was structured for the staff as well. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that structure. That kept me on the right path for a good amount of time for me to get everything else outside of work in order and get my life back on track. So I have a lot to thank for the prison service. I'm no longer working in the prison service, but I have a lot to thank for the prison service for that aspect of helping me change who I used to be. And that's what I did and that's the conversations I was having. And I was successful at it. I don't think there was anything that I set myself to do to change that I failed at. And looking back, there were only easy things, like getting a different job. That's easy. Cutting off some of your friends. That's easy. Stop going out on a weekend. That's easy. When you look at it on paper, it's just easy things. But for somebody that's, that those aspects of their life are engraved in them, it's really hard. And especially when you're trying to get over something like depression and anxiety, they're hard things to have to do because it's so easy to not do. But yeah, I was successful at all those things, and that helped me get back on the right path.
For me, one thing that I had to learn was to understand that if I'm going to separate myself from people who are there always around me, such as my friends, I would have to learn to anticipate that some people would be hurt, or some people would be angered, or some people would be enraged. And one thing that I found is I was a little bit naive when I made the decisions that you made when I wanted to improve and maybe change the course of my life. I thought that if I positioned it a certain way, that everyone would be supportive, that I was maybe putting some distance to. So there's a group where if I would stop going out to the bar, to the club, to the late night, I thought that they would understand. There's some people that if I was going to stop chasing women all hours of the night, right? I thought some people would understand, but there's some people that became spiteful. There's some people that became combative. Did you find that as well when you're making these changes and you started to not do some of the behaviors that you're doing previously, that some people kind of weren't as supportive as you maybe anticipated them to be?
Yeah, 100%. It's the thing I had to, it took time for me to comprehend that, because there was those reactions. There was people that got bitter about me not being in contact with them as much as I used to be, or not going to certain places with them and things like that. But it's not for them to understand. That's the thing I have to take away from it. And you have to tell yourself it's your story, it's your life. It's not for if they can't understand it, then that's their problem, not yours. And it's hard to not take that on, because I think it's human nature. We kind of soak in other people's feelings and their actions. We take that on board more than what we should do, I think. If we see somebody sad, automatically our face changes and we go over and we're trying to be empathetic with them, and that's just human nature. So when somebody does something or says something and it affects you, ultimately you're giving them control of your feelings, So I needed to take back my control. So as selfish as it sounds, I stopped giving a shit what people thought. I stopped caring what people thought, because the people that cared would eventually rise to the surface and still be there at the end of it. The ones that really matter. And I found that, it happened naturally. My friendship circle and even my family, certain people and certain aspects, they just disappeared, and the real ones came to the front. And like the old saying is, the cream always rises to the top, and that's true with your friendship circle as well. So they'll respect it. The ones that don't care, they're the ones that are voicing their opinions, because they're probably more interested in what they think than what you think. So you just got to not give them the power.
That is key. And that's what I want everyone to take away today is it's not going to be easy. As you mentioned, not going to be a walk in the park. There's going to be some people that you thought was going to be there until you're old and gray, and it's going to be your version of the Golden Girls, right? Where you guys are just going to live together in your house until you're 80, 90 years old. And I tried to make some of the people that were kind of bitter, as you mentioned, understand. And then there came a point in my life where I've tried once, I've tried twice. I'm not going to continue to try to make them understand while they're not even trying to understand where I'm coming from. It came across as being one way. I need to understand their point of view, but they won't even acknowledge mine. And when I'm speaking to some of the clients I deal with, they have a hard time being okay with not having people around them that are like that. They would rather bend their own will, bend their knee, for example, to accommodate people that if the situation was reversed, they wouldn't do it for them. What's some advice that maybe you'd want to give to them to help them along the journey, get to the point where you are, where it's like, I'm focusing on me, and anything that takes away from that, I don't want to be a part of it?
Well, I mean, for me, the advice would be just do it. Because if you don't, the reason you surround yourself with these people in the first place is because it makes life easy. And agreeing to this and agreeing to that and doing X and Y, it's just too easy. Nothing in life is easy. Not one thing in life is easy. Only good comes from hard work. So just do it. Just cut these people off. And like you said earlier, if you've tried once, don't try again, because that energy you're focusing on trying to appease these other people can be better focused on yourself. And that's what can sometimes slow the progression down, is not focusing that energy. So refocus the energy on yourself and just do what you need to do. If you sit and have a think about it, you know deep down. I always used to take a minute, like on a morning and on a night, and I'd sit on my bed in the morning and say, right, what do I need to do today? And there were 3 things what I wanted to do. And then on the night time, I'd sit on the edge of my bed again and just say, did I do those 3 things? And just keep yourself focused with little goals, daily goals, hourly goals, and just do what you need to do. It is hard. And I don't think there is any. The thing is, with friendship circles and family, there is no one size fits all advice, because everybody's family is different. Everybody's friends are different. It might take that 1 or 2 times with one of your friends for them to actually turn their way of thinking round and be like, actually, yeah, he or she is right. Let's support he or she. And same for families as well. So I don't think there's one size fits all, but my advice is just stick to your guns and just do it. And it will all be right in the end.
One thing that I always found surprising is that when things are really good, right? Let's say you and I are friends, and we're the type of friends that we go out and we have an incredible time. At the height, the peak of our friendship, there's always a conversation. We're going to be friends forever, brothers for life. We're going to support each other. But it seems like there's some people, it's those words are only true if you continue to be the person that I expect you to be.
Yeah.
Meaning that you're going to continue to come out, you're going to continue to party, you're going to continue to drink, you're going to continue to do whatever. But if you say, hey, Train, you know what? I can't come out this Friday night. I want to spend time doing this, or I'm thinking about doing this. As a true friend, I should say, you know what, Nick? That's perfectly fine, because a better Nick means a better friendship for me and a better person that I would want to be around, right? Because I want the very best for you.
Yeah.
That's the definition of friendship. So when you look back on your life and your journey now, are you happy? Actually, I'm not going to ask that. How do you feel looking back on your journey today versus maybe last year, 5 years ago, when you're still on the tail end of it or going through it?
I feel like I'm progressing. I never feel. See, the thing is with me, I've never been satisfied. So I have to find something to focus on to keep that dopamine rush there, but it needs to be positive. So I always see every day as progress, whether it's I've done one little job or I've signed a massive guest on my podcast. It's took me 3 months. It's all progression. It's all moving forward. So my life compared to what it was even 3-4 years ago is now massively different, because taking each day at a time, instead of looking too far in front, just take it a day at a time. Like I said to you, if just sit on the edge of your bed in the morning, wake up or sit with your coffee and think, right, I need to do this, and this today. And then at the end of the night, sit back down with your tea or coffee and just think, did I accomplish these things? If not, why? And if I did, reflect on that. And things will naturally progress. But yeah, I'm happy where I am right now, because every day is progression. Like I say, even compared to just 3-4 years ago, it was massively different. But yeah, I'm really happy with where things are now.
As we close, Nick, what's some advice you want to give to maybe the next generation who are battling depression? They don't know where to turn. Maybe they're unable to identify the support system that they need, but they still want advice. What do you want to tell them?
I think I'd like to switch that up and maybe say, I don't want to give advice to the people that are actually going through it, or people that are suffering with depression and stuff, but I'd like to give advice to the people that are surrounding those people that are suffering, and just ask those to be more aware of what's going on, be more understanding, put yourself across and be more open. Start conversations that you might think are irrelevant but could change somebody's day. Ask somebody, how are you feeling today? Invite somebody round for a coffee. Phone that person that you've been putting off for weeks and weeks, because that could make a world of difference, that one phone call or a one text message. So I don't really want to give advice to somebody that's going through it, because for me, everybody's different. And if somebody tried to give me advice when I was suffering, I would have just dismissed it. It was the support circle that I had around me that eventually changed how I was and got me back on track. So my advice would be to those people, just, if you're thinking about reaching out to somebody, or you've got friends that you've not spoke to for a day or two, and you usually speak every hour, just pick the phone up. If you're falling out with somebody, just pick the phone up, knock on somebody's door, go and see if they're okay. Go and have a coffee with your dad, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your auntie. Just see if everyone's okay and ask that question, but don't be happy with an half-hearted answer, because it is like Tourette's. We just automatically say, yeah, I'm fine. How are you? Force a conversation. Make a conversation out of that one sentence, because it's like, hey, how are you doing? Is like a stepping stone onto something that we really want to say in a conversation. But have, hey, how are you doing? Focus that as the conversation and get it out of them. How are you doing? Yeah, but how are you doing really?